All right, I got my Japanese outfit and I got my Japanese weapon. What? This is a Japanese weapon. Ah, screw you. Let's talk about Shogun. All right. So, new show on Hulu, apparently based on a book. Didn't actually know that going in. Everyone's been calling this Japanese Game of Thrones, and yeah, I see why. This feels a lot like a Japanese Game of Thrones. It's very based on the politics of what's going on, like different houses vying for power, and there's a lot this show does really well, and people are giving it 10 out of 10, saying it's a masterpiece, a must-watch, you have to watch, it's absolutely perfect. I don't think I have a hot take here. I think I have a bit of a lukewarm take. I really liked this show. I liked it a lot. But I didn't think it was this flawless masterpiece everyone's calling it. Mainly for the big reason being, you know what, I don't think this is a spoiler because I'm going to tell you something that doesn't happen on this show. I don't think that's a spoiler. I'm going to try to do no spoilers and then talk about spoilers later. But I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you something's not going to happen. So this whole season is like building to like, oh my god, there's going to be war. There's going to be this insane war. Like, they're constantly saying, oh my god, this'll cause a war, that'll cause a war, there's gonna be war, war is inevitable, there is no way to not have a war. The war doesn't happen in this show. It never happens. You never get to see it. So if you're here to see the war, this might not be the show for you. I went in being so ready to see the war. Wilda, my girlfriend was watching it with me, and she went in so ready to see the war, and we never saw the war. Like, they make it clear that a war does happen after the events of this show, but you don't get to see it. And some of you might be thinking, well, it's a little unfair for you to go into this show expecting some huge war, like some huge battle. Like, well, let me tell you something. This story is a fictionalized version of real events that really happened. Like, the main character, the Anjin, who's something Blackwood in this version. Like, it's not the name he had in reality. In reality, his name was William. That guy really existed, and this power struggle really happened, and there really was a war in history, and let me tell you something. This war had, I believe, the biggest, most deadly battle in all of Japanese history, the Battle of Sekigahara. And I was like, oh, fuck, I can't wait for that. Like, I thought, if we're not going to get it in this season, they're at least going to build to it in, like, a season 2. I hadn't read the book or seen the older show, keep in mind. But it turns out that never happens in this show. In fact, like, there's a point where they kind of tell you what's going to happen in the future. They say, in the future, there will be a Battle of Sekigahara, but we won't see it here. I was like, no, I want to see the Battle of Sekigahara. So as someone who kind of knows the history, I went in and knowing that this was a fictionalized version of that history, I thought that kind of stuff was going to be shown at some point. And I thought, well, if not now, we'll at least build to it in season 2. But I found out there's not going to be a season 2 because this is based on a book I didn't know going in, and the book, ends where this ends, I guess. And I was like, oh man! So I was really let down by that. But so then I thought, okay, well, it's just trying to adapt the book. There's not much they can do. But then I looked it up. I think there are parts at the end of the book that take place after the Battle of Sekigahara. I'm like, you could have included that. Or you could have just at least thrown in, like, we know that battle happens in this continuity. It would have been really cool to add in that battle or see... okay, maybe I'm asking too much of a Hulu show. Like, I want to see some giant epic war, the biggest, bloodiest war in all of Japanese history. It's just, like, please try to understand. when the story literally takes place in the events leading up to that battle, my brain concludes we are going to conclude with that battle. Like, you understand that, right? But putting aside my disappointment at not actually seeing a big war or a big, huge battle, this is a really, really good show. Like, perfectly acted, perfectly shot. The sets are fantastic. The costumes are fantastic. The characters are fantastic. I was invested in every single character. Like, I was really interested in their journeys. I really love the main character. Some people now the main character is a white guy, and some people might be like, what the hell? I came into a show called Shogun to see Japanese people. Why is the main character a white guy? And yeah, I get that, but keep in mind this guy actually existed in history. He was the first Englishman to go to Japan and become an actual samurai in history. So he was a thing, and he was there during this time in history. So, it makes sense for him to be there. Some of my, and he's a great character. I absolutely love the way he talks. He's got this accent that's so fun to listen to. Like, right when the show started, he's on a ship with other shipmates, and they're all talking to each other, and I'm like, I love the way these characters talk. I'm already into it. So, and he's a great character. It's really interesting to see him come into Japan and what he's used to versus what's the norm here. Like, one very tragic thing in Japan, especially feudal Japan, is, this lack of value for human life. Which he even says at one point. He's like, you guys have no respect for human life or value. I don't remember the exact words. But yeah, I remember watching this, and Wilda was like, why do they keep offing themselves? Why? And I was like, oh, that was a thing back then. They believed honor was everything, and they believed it was better. If you dishonored yourself, it was better to off yourself and your whole freaking family than to not do that. It's so messed up, and it's tragic, but it was the culture at the time. It's something that's always kind of bummed me out about Japan, because Japan is such a rich, incredible culture that has so much to offer the world. I mean, we get so much from them. It's I love stuff that's come out of Japan, in case you can't tell. And yet, I feel like they don't value themselves enough, even though they've added so much incredible stuff to the world. Even in samurai times, samurai shit is really, really cool. But yeah, a guy so much as stands up during a meeting and says, hey, I don't like what you said. And as a result of that, he later has to off himself and his entire line. It's like, holy crap. It's hard to watch some of this stuff, and it's hard to absorb some of this stuff. And I think that just speaks to, how well executed it is. In a lesser show, I wouldn't care, but I cared about everyone in this show. So this is a really, really well done show. I think they nailed it in so many different ways. Something I actually didn't know about the history all that well was just how much of a Catholic presence was in Japan at the time. So, I got to learn something new. Obviously, this is fictionalized history, but I did end up going and looking things up as a result. And I think that's a mark of a good, educational product, is that it guides you to want to learn more about the thing they're covering. The female characters in this are awesome, by the way. The main female, Mariko, I've got a list of the names here because I'm very white. So the main female, Mariko, she has such interesting character, such an interesting arc. And I cared about her. And there's a certain love interest thing going on that I was really rooting for, honestly. And again, we're not going to get into spoilers, but I was really rooting for her. But actually, my favorite character, I think, was Fuji. Fuji is actually a consort character, but given something that happens to her in the first episode, I already felt so much for her. And throughout the show, she was pretty awesome, honestly. There's a time where she gets to kind of show her loyalty and that she's kind of a badass. And I don't know. I think it helps that she also just had one of those faces where when she's sad, you kind of want to give her a hug. Like, you ever have a friend like that or know someone like that who, when they're sad, you're like, oh no, I'll give you a hug. Like, but yeah, she was a really awesome character too. And there's some nice moments throughout the show of the main character, who I'm just going to call Anjin from this point because that's what they call him in the show. Anjin means pilot. And it was what he was called in real history. I learned about this character by playing Neo. For anyone who's played Neo, the character you play as a Neo is the same historical character who's the main character in this show. So there you go. But yeah, there's these nice moments where the Anjin like comes into the town, and of course at first everyone doesn't get him. They think he's a barbarian, but over time, like, you see like some acceptance start and some like him learning like how to fit in more in Japan and stuff like that. And it's another reason I was a little disappointed that this only gets one season, because I feel like there's so much more you could tell with his story, and there's also so much you could tell with Fuji's story. Like, I really wanted to see more of them. I really wanted to see him fully become samurai and like fully like, become what he is in real history. But we're not going to get that because there's not going to be a season 2. Some people are really happy we're not getting a season 2 because they're like, oh, good, they're not going to drag it out or ruin it like Game of Thrones. It's like, yeah, I get that. But I would have liked a little more. I would have liked one more season or something. But, again, like, if you're out of book, you're out of book. Like, what else can you do? But, you could always just draw. You do have another source, real history. You could pull from it if you get some talented people. But I don't know. Let's just talk about this for what it is. One really entertaining character whose name I always forget is Yabushige. Yeah, that's the name. I just called him the dastardly uncle in this show. Yabushige is such a fun character, and his story is so much fun. I've never seen this in a drama show before. This is his whole character, so I'll just tell you. He keeps trying to betray his lord, and his plans keep getting screwed. It's so funny to watch him constantly fail at betraying his own lord. It's so funny to see like things keep going wrong. And he's got this nephew character, and what I like is like I kind of felt a bit of a real bond between him and his nephew, especially in the last episode. And I liked that. It's also really fun to see all the different samurai hairstyles the characters have, the different behavior of different houses and stuff like that. And by the way, the Lord Toranaga, the main Japanese character in this, the like ruler of Edo, like one of the big houses, perfectly cast. I love this actor who plays him, and I don't think you could have found a better American Japanese actor in this day and age than him to play the role. He does a fantastic job, just absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I'm just praising this show all over the place. So what I would say about this show at the end is, should you watch it? Now everyone's saying must watch, must watch, must watch. And I get why everyone's saying must watch, because it does have such fantastic characters. It does have such fantastic sets. It does have such fantastic dialogue. The story is great for what it is. The characters are I keep saying the characters, but the characters really were the best part of the show. I love the main character. I love Lord Toranaga. I love the female characters Mariko and Fuji. I love Yabushige. Like, he's so much fun. And when there is action, it's fun. There is some cool action in this, like involving like assassins. There's one pretty cool scene involving cannons, but it's short, unfortunately. So that stuff is cool. And there's another cool action scene involving leaving an area. I don't want to spoil stuff, but that's also really fun to watch. So, yeah, I do see why everyone's calling it a must-watch, must-watch. But if you were coming into this because you wanted to see some huge military campaign, or like two armies fighting, or you were hoping it would build up to that in future seasons like Game of Thrones did, though Game of Thrones fucked it up, you might be disappointed a little bit. Because I was a little disappointed by that, but I still had a great time watching the show. So it's a little complicated to say. So, I don't know, maybe check out the first episode and see if you're invested. If you're invested after that, then, that's the tone pretty much the rest of the season is going to have. But if you watch the first episode and are like, okay, but I want to get to the big action, it doesn't get to the big action. So don't expect that. So if the first episode doesn't grab you, I don't think the rest of the episodes will grab you. But if the first episode does grab you, which it did me and it did several other people, then I think you're in for a great ride. So yeah, that's the best recommendation I can do, because the first episode really is wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna get into some spoilers now. Yeah, I guess I'll just get into spoilers. All right, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Okay. So, one of the most hard to watch scenes that really bummed me out in the opening of this show was one of Blackwood's crew gets boiled alive for basically no reason. Like, he just gets boiled alive, this poor guy, and they even show some of it. It's like, oh god, it's so hard to watch. And what makes it even worse is it was a thing that happened occasionally in real history. Just to think about that, what a dark time in history. Ooh, that kind of thing was done. So yeah, that really, honestly, it made me think, my god, Yabushige is willing to just do that at the drop of a hat. He seems like a really evil guy. But then in later episodes, it's like, I think they want me to like him or they want me to not like him. Either way, he's very entertaining. I didn't know whether to like the guy or not. It was so hard to tell because he had done something so horrible in the first episode. But then again, a lot of horrible stuff is done throughout this show. Like I said, in the opening, there's a meeting between Lord Toranaga and the other elders or council or whatever they're called, and this one guy is pretty clearly insulting Toranaga, and then one of Toranaga's men gets up and says, "Hey, how dare you insult my lord," and starts to draw his sword, and then it's like, "Hey, how dare you do that?" And then he goes, "Oh, okay, let me off myself and my line." So he's going to off his infant son because of that. Dude, all you had to do was do nothing. Why do you have to be so stupid? And also, why do you have to offer up your baby? You'd think that the reason he's offering to off himself would be so that the rest of his family doesn't, have any consequences. But, no, he just does the baby. And then Fuji's there with the baby. And this cute, and baby's so cute. And I was like, no, don't hurt the baby. But they did, and it's so depressing. It's so freaking depressing. And because of that, I immediately just wanted Fuji to be happy so much. So for the entire rest of the show, I was like, oh, please find happiness in some way. Oh, God. I love the scene, though, where the Anjin is told, hey, you can't bring your guns to this meeting. And then she says, okay, give your guns to me. I promise, I'll protect them with my life. And he goes, okay, and he gives her his guns. And then the, nephew character's like, all right, come on, you give me the guns then. And then she points it at him and is like, no. And I was like, hell yeah, I love this character. It's also interesting, again, I know some Japanese history and culture, but I'm not, an expert. One thing, attention to detail I noticed is every time a woman touched, the pistols or a sword or something, she'd cover her hand up and just touch it with the cloth. Now, I don't know the exact history behind that, but I'm guessing, they were considered unworthy to wield it or something, which, of course, is bullshit, but, it's also a product of the times. And, I really loved the moment when he offers to give her the gun, and she's, saying to Mariko, what, I don't want to protect him, and Mariko's like, he's trying to be nice, come on. And then she realizes it, and she's like, okay, it's sweet of him to give me this, so now I'm going to give him, escalated a little quickly, but it was a really nice gesture, I'm going to give him my father's sword now. And he's like, oh my god, I can't accept this. And they're like, please accept it. It's like, aw, that's really sweet. And it just made me like Fuji even more. Like, honestly, like, I would be totally down if they wanted to add in a scene where someone tries to break into the Anjin's house and Fuji shoots the guy. That would have been amazing. Again, it's why I wanted another season. It's like, I feel like you laid perfect foundation and built everything up so perfectly. Now I want to see it executed, but we don't get to see it executed. It bums me out a little bit. Mariko is also an extremely interesting and likable character who's in a marriage she's not happy about, even though her husband's kind of shitty. Like, there's a scene where he beats her, so that's really unacceptable. Outside of that, he's kind of a badass. Like, he gets through so much hell. Like, there's a point where they want you to think he's dead, because he holds off, like, a whole army by himself, army of bandits or whatever, like, while the main characters get away. And then you don't see him die, though. You see him, like, run into, like, some house as he fights them, and I was like, okay, he's not dead. No. My rule when I watch a show like this is if you don't see the death, it didn't happen. I guess the only exception to this is Stannis Baratheon in Game of Thrones. We didn't see the death, but apparently he did die. That was one time where I was like, oh, I guess he is dead. Alright. But I've been right about this in so many other instances, like with the Hound and other shit. So, yeah, I was right that he wasn't dead. And you know what was hilarious? So I told Wilda, like, I said, there's no way he's dead. And, like, we didn't see him die. And she's like, yeah, I think you're right. And then I jokingly said to her, oh, watch, she's gonna have sex with the Anjin because she thinks her husband's dead. Then her husband's gonna come back and it's gonna be some Jerry Springer shit. And she laughed. But then that actually happened. That actually full on happened. Like, straight up word for word, that is what happened. I was laughing my ass off. I was like, I called it. So yeah, that was really funny. But yeah, you know, like, she and the Anjin, I felt like had a real connection, and, you know, I was rooting for them to get together at some point. But unfortunately, like, in order for Toranaga's plan to succeed, in order to divide the houses against each other, he needed Mariko to die. Because, like, in order to, like, make the houses not... At one point, one of the house owners, Ishido... Yeah, I didn't have to look at the list. Lord Ishido is holding all the other houses hostage to do what he wants, but it's not on... Like, you know, he's acting like that's not what he's doing, but that totally is what he's doing. So Toranaga needs Mariko to go into the town and just leave on her own accord, or try to leave on her own accord. Because if he lets her leave, that means he has to let everyone leave. But if he doesn't let her leave, that's a confession that people are being held here against their will, and all the houses will turn on him. So it's a real damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, and which makes it a great plan on Toranaga's part. And it leads to this really cool scene where she's trying to leave the town, and the, you know, guards won't let her leave, so her samurai fight their samurai, and even she fights them. And some people may be thinking, why does she know how to fight? Well, it was established, like, that she learned how to fight with what are they called again? Nagatos, something like that. It's the spear with the blade at the end. But yeah, like, so it leads to a cool scene. But don't worry, she doesn't, like, Mulan it. She alone doesn't take on... I'm talking about the stupid remake Mulan version, not the original, which I love. She doesn't remake Mulan it and just defeat 50 guys on her own. No, she loses. Like, because, like, she fights well, but she loses. You know, and it makes sense that she would. And, you know, then it leads to her being like, okay, if they're not going to kill me here, I'm going to, you know, seppuku. Because I've been ordered to leave by my lord, but I can't fulfill his wish, so now I have to do this. And so, you know, she keeps backing Lord Ishido into a corner. Oh, a really cool part of that fight is when his archers shoot at her feet to try to warn her, like, to go back, but she just keeps on walking, like, and the arrows get, like, closer and closer. Really cool choreography there. And then after all of that, he decides to he hires shinobi, like, ninjas to capture her. Though I didn't fully understand why he did. Like, what's capturing her going to do for you now? Like, you've already, like, conceded to letting everyone leave. So I didn't understand what capturing her was going to do for him at that point. I really didn't understand. But it does lead to a cool scene where the shinobi assassins show up and start killing everyone who isn't a lord. But then when they try to blow through it, and yeah, where the Anjin gets to finally use his guns, that was pretty cool. It made sense. Like, he's not going to defeat a ninja in like one-on-one sword fighting, but he, is, a gun user and they're not. So, he would know how to take them down with that. So that, I liked that was how he beat them. And then, when the ninjas are about to blow through, Mariko intentionally gets killed by their explosion in order to further Toranaga's plan. And it's interesting because, Yabushige gets so depressed when she dies because he's the one who let the ninjas in. It's like, I didn't know Mariko was going to die. Yeah, but you knew all those other non-lords were going to die. I guess if you're not high status, it doesn't matter. Like, so many people died when she was trying to leave the town, but none of their deaths matter. It only matters if she does. So many people were killed by the ninjas, but none of their deaths matter. It only matters when she dies. It's like, man, the lack of value for human life. It's like, oh, yeah, but you're not part of some high house. Screw you. Which, again, is probably very historically accurate. It's just, when you actually stop and think about it, it's like, damn, rough. Yeah, so then Yabushige starts going a little crazy, and he starts looking for a catfish that could have caused an earthquake, which is a reference to a yokai. I believe it's called an Onamazu. It inspired the Pokemon Whiscash, for anyone who doesn't know. So I loved seeing that little reference in there. I also loved when he was hanging the dead bird. People were like, it's so disgusting. You would think a Tatarigami is cursing us, which is another like Japanese, yokai. So I was like, cool. It's cool to see that too. God, another scene that depressed the hell out of me is when he hangs up his bird. He just kind of jokingly says, hey, don't touch it or you die. And then someone eventually does get rid of it and gets offed for it. And that was another moment that bummed me the hell out. It's like, man, you took something that we thought was just a funny one-off thing being said, and then it became so plot relevant and so depressing. It's like, holy crap, this show really is able to, get me to feel some shit. Like, the character deaths, like Toranaga's son trying to fight for him and then slipping and dying against a rock tragically, that got me a lot too. So yeah, I was really, really invested in this show. So those are just, and I could go on and on and on, but I don't want this video to become too long. The point is it's great and I was invested in everyone. But I would have liked more action. I would have liked their stories to continue. Oh, wait, I have to talk about one scene that I hated. There's one thing I totally hate and should not have been in the show. This show has a flash forward. I hate flash forwards so much. I hate them so much. They are always a pointless spoiler that does not need to be in the show. Like, the only thing I hate more than a flash forward is fucking, like, when a show starts in the middle of show or movie starts in the middle of something and goes 3 weeks earlier. I can't stand that. So it flashes forward to the Anjin being old and I guess back in Europe and clutching Mariko's cross, and he has 2 grandkids. And look, I know the real history of the character, so first of all, I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. And Wilda next to me went, well, this is annoying. Now I know he's not gonna die. Like, now I know he's safe. And I was like, yeah, for you, that must be really, really annoying. And you know what's even worse? Is it turns out later, like they say, oh, he's never gonna leave Japan, though, and he drops her cross in the water to, like, move on. So that flash forward was a lie. It wasn't even real. What was the point of it then? Like, why did you do that? What, you just trying to red herring the audience? That's so stupid. Look, they did something like this in BoJack Horseman once, but there it made more sense because it was like a coping mechanism for one of the characters. Here, they never establish any reason for that to exist. Like, I don't know what the hell, like, they were thinking with that. I don't know if that's in the book or not, but I hate that. I hate that so much. But putting that aside, there's a cool reveal at the end that it turned out this whole time Toranaga wanted to be Shogun. There's also this weird thing where, like, Toranaga's, like, subjugating the people of, is it Ishii village? Or he's subjugating the people of a village because he says, well, someone in this village destroyed the Anjin's ship. That's betrayal against me. So he's, like, subjugating them all. And 3 people have been executed. You see their heads put on display. But then it turns out later that Toranaga's the one who destroyed this ship as a way to just test the Anjin, see how he would react, I guess. But it's like, so you just tormented your own people and killed 3 of them to test the Anjin? Were those 3 people you killed actual traitors you rooted out? Or were those just innocent people? Like, I don't know. I don't know what you were doing there. So that was a little weird. I mean, it was a really cool reveal that he's trying to be Shogun. But, like, it's like, so you're also kind of a monster. But I don't know. I don't know the exact stuff. But overall, like, everyone's giving this show a 10 out of 10. For the few small issues I've pointed out, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So, yeah, I'd say 9 out of 10 for the overall show. And I think that's about all I have to say. I don't know how to end videos.